Hi, my name is Gudrun from GE Designs. Welcome to my live quilting chat, Tipsy Tuesday. Hi everybody, thanks for being with us. Say hi in the comments, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. We always love to see where everybody's from that is watching us live. And of course, interact by sending us some thumbs up and hearts if you like what you're seeing. And make sure you follow our page or subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. That's going to make sure you don't miss a show. You don't ever want to miss a show because, of course, we have a giveaway every single show. So you can win a $25 gift card just by watching and commenting and interacting with everybody. So we have a live winner every show, and then we have a giveaway question at the end. So you want to stick around till the end, all the way till the end. And we're going to start off by announcing our winners from last week's show. We asked you a question, do you grow any fruit? And great answers from everybody. I love your encouragement to me of trying to plant some fruit trees at my new house. And so our winner is Chris Jarvie Costa. Congratulations, Chris. Chris grows pomegranates and orange trees. Ooh, pomegranates. I wonder what kind of climate that needs. Interesting. Congrats, Chris. All you got to do is send us an email to help@gequiltdesigns.com and we will get you that gift card right away. Now, everybody say hi to Mr. HP. He is, of course, working the controllers behind the scenes. And there he is. So today's show, we will be talking a lot about flannel. Yes, I have brand new bundles in the store to show you and a few work in progress projects that I've started with this really beautiful yummy flannel we have in the store. I absolutely love it. This is the season for it. And so then I will also be showing you how you can make a lap size backing from a fabric panel, using a fabric panel in it. So just using one panel and then one 3-yard cut of fabric. So stay tuned for that towards the end of the show, but we got lots to cover today. Let's start with looking at what we got on the set. It's full of flannel. The set is full of flannel. So we have on the wall, we have a supersized Nina quilt. This one was made last year. We had these beautiful fat quarters from Maywood Fabrics. But the pattern cover for the supersized Nina pattern, it's an individual pattern. We used some of the Moda plaid fabrics. I did a monochromatic one. I really, really loved it. This quilt is currently being loved and used all the time. So we have a similar bundle right now in the store to make something similar. Then we have in the corner, we have a Phoenix quilt. And then on the other side, we have a supersized steamy windows. So let's check out, I have another version of Phoenix also using flannels. And this one behind me was a bundle that we had on the sale, in the tent sale, Cyber tent sale, but it is sold out, unfortunately. And so I did a Phoenix with a light background, and then there it is with a scrappy background. I just used greens for the darks, and then all those light grays for my lights. So love this pattern, and this pattern is perfect for flannel quilts, bigger pieces. So then we have the other one on the ladder is supersized steamy windows. I don't think we have the cover of that, but I had made also supersized steamy windows out of the monochromatic grays and blacks plaids last year. And again, that quilt is being loved and used. Back home in Iceland, I gifted it to my nephew. So he's using it every day. So we just love flannel quilts. They're so cuddly and warm and cozy during those fall and winter evenings. On the cabinet, we have two baby-sized quilts. One is called Lickety Split, and it's a single pattern. It's also a quilt as you go pattern. And then we have a pitter patter on the cabinet, and that is actually, we had this as a, no, that was from a flannel bundle also that just sold out in the tent sale called New Here Flannel. But These, both of them, Quilt As You Go, they're great for using flannel. So just wanted to kind of give you that inspiration. Behind Mr. HP, we have another flannel quilt that we made last year. That is a Teen Spirit quilt. Can you put that bigger? Can you show yourself a little bigger? Well, there you are. We used actually some panel squares as well. You see those snowman panel squares, and I kind of just substituted them for some of the blocks, but that is another favorite. Beautiful. It's almost time to bring it out. We don't have snow yet. It's still 80+ degrees around here, but we know that when it turns fast. So that's everything that is on the set. So before we get into flannel, I wanted to just mention a couple of things about our Cyber Tent sale. 2 more days left, 2 more days. And I wanted to make sure that you knew that. Why are you showing this? That was not the right thing to show. Are you there?
There was a problem over here, and I don't know. I think Andrea did it.
Oh, are you going to blame her? Oh, that's not very nice. That's not very nice.
I think her sister did it.
Oh, yeah, let's say hi to Andrea's sister. She's in town visiting. Natalia. Mm-hmm. So she's in town visiting from Colombia for two months. Yeah. You should come over and wave at everybody. Oh my God. She's all shy. But you should come and say hi. Okay, both of you just come. Oh, okay. So she's just checking out GE Designs. Look how cute she is. Both cute. You can totally tell your sisters. You can totally tell your sisters.
I don't know what to here.
Yeah, there you go. So you can't blame them for all the mistakes you make, honey.
I know, I'm sorry. It was me.
That is no bueno. Okay. So, speaking of the Cyber Tent sale, like I said, 2 more days. So, through Thursday, September 22nd, until midnight, it will be open and available. Then it will be no more. So, it is totally worth a swing through. I know you've probably swung through it once online. It is, everything is severely discounted. The prices are all actual prices on bundles, half-yard bundles. We have 1 yards, we have 3 yards, we have some 108s, though a lot of it has sold out. Some panels, some very few pre-cuts left, and then some of our kits are already 25% off, so it's a good way to snatch up some good fabrics. We have been updating the selections non-stop, like removing products as soon as they sell out, and then adding others if we happen to find a little more of something, and which happens. So there were 2 bundles, actually, well, 3 bundles that I had specifically hoped to get them in before the tent sale, but they, of course, didn't arrive. We still can't rely on our fabric deliveries, still having some issues, but we got them in last week, and we literally got them all cut up and folded and packaged, and so we're adding them to the sale. So I wanted to show you those. So the first one I'm going to show you is actually not a half-yard bundle. It's a fat quarter bundle because it is a kind of a basics line. It's beautiful. It's from Marcus Fabrics. And this one is called Fantasy. So I just wanted to show you, I believe there's 16 fat quarters. And so it's all the same print in a variety of colors. So look how great this one is. And just don't panic if it's not listed on the website yet. These were just fresh from under the cutter. So a great set of fat quarters here in all those beautiful colors. Most of them are tone on tone. There's a couple that have other colors in it, but this is the same print that is on all of them. It's called Fantasy. Let me show you. It's beautiful. Beautiful. So this one, and then we have this one that has a little bit of multicolor. All the other ones are just a tone on tone. So great kind of a basics builder for your stash. So check this one out. And then we have 2 half-yard bundles. The first one is called, where's my note? Bungalow Garden. Bungalow Garden. So let me show you just real quick. I didn't do a fabric pull with these because they just came in. I just wanted to show you. So beautiful main print here. So these really great blues in shades from the light blue in the main print and then into a little bit darker. We have a typography print and a little bit darker teal. And then adding a little bit of green with a plaid-like print. And the full-on plaid, great diagonal plaid in this lime green base. A little bit darker green small print. A tone-on-tone green with leaves. And then we have the other colorway of the plaid, the light background with the pink and the blue. And then we have another small floral with the beautiful pink flowers, the green, bright green leaves, and little hints of that teal. And then we bring in the pink colorway. So I added a jot dot to this bundle or to this fabric line to balance out the colors. So this is Bungalow Garden. So 12 pieces. And going straight into the Cyber Tent sale for a great, great price. So this is one of them. The other one is called Carousel, and it's kind of a similar colorway, but a little bit more modern, more young and fresh print. So it starts with this one. I really like this one. Kind of this mod feel to this print. So greens and teals and turquoise, and then of course that hot pink in there. So here's some great tone on tones in these colors of turquoise and teal, and then throwing in a little bit of that green, bright green in there. Love this circle print here. Then we have a more greener tone here with this plaid and a tone on tone. Really like this print as a tone on tone. So then we have a stripe incorporating the pink and the blue and the green. And then we go into some of our pinks. So again, I try to pick different textures, different scales, and different hues. Love that there's a hue difference, and finishing it off with a darker plaid. So this one is called Carousel. Again, going straight into the tent sale, Cyber Tent sale. So if you haven't checked out the tent sale, let me show you exactly where to go to find that on our website. So you pull up our website and you go to the link that says shop, and then you go straight to the far right on the bottom where it says Cyber Tent Sale. So check that out. It's kind of circled in pink. And then everything is in there. So then you should straight go to the filter by and filter that. You can filter it by stash builder bundle. You can filter it by 1 yards. You can filter it by fabric kits. So you can really kind of narrow it down and look at what really interests you. All right, any questions on that? Like I said, through midnight on September 22nd, a very special day. Somebody's birthday. Somebody's having a birthday. Somebody's adding another year on. Mr. HP birthday. All right, what pattern would you use for the carousel? Oh, that's a really versatile pattern. So many of my patterns, I could not even pick one or two. It's a great bundle with lots of kind of saturated tone on tones, so it would carry over to many, many things. All right, let's move on to our next thing on the list here. Before we get into the flannels, I wanted to mention that we just added a whole bunch of pre-orders to our website. It's been a while. We've been so busy, so we're excited to be able to add more pre-orders. Now, of course, these are found on the website under pre-order products, and just make sure when you are placing an order for those, you get a discount by ordering these in a pre-order. You get a little bit of a discount, but make sure you check the delivery, expected delivery. So that is kind of when we expect to receive it. And of course, we ship all our pre-orders out almost before we list the bundle in stock. So it's a great way to kind of plan ahead and make sure you get something that you really want. But make sure that you are ordering those on their own, or if you want to order 2 pre-orders together, make sure they have a similar delivery date, because if you order pre-order products with in-stock products, they are not going to come to you until the pre-order product comes. And sometimes we cannot fully guarantee that you then get the stuff that was in your in stock. We try to set things aside, but sometimes when there's a really long time, if it's weeks or months, it's hard to keep a handle on. So please, if by all means you can, order those pre-orders separately. So then we can just pack them up and ship them out to you as soon as they come in. So let's check out these new ones. Let's start with this Cool Breeze. This is by Katie Pasquini Massapus from Free Spirit. Of course, we love her fun, eclectic lines. If you remember Game Day, so very, I would say, geometric prints, no florals, all geometric, so they could go into a quilt all together, or they could be broken out and fit in with so many other things. But I love this fresh colorway with the purples and black, and then lime green, hints of lime green together. Just love this one. Then we have Linear by Ruby Star. This one is beautiful. I love the dancers, and again, the black and the gold with just a touch of pink in there. Just love this colorway. Really nice and fresh and unique. Then we have another favorite from Moda. Fancy That Design House has come out with another songbook. Songbook, A New Page is this one. This one is called. So a tad different colorways from the first songbook. Love the deep navy, and then we have a teal and a light blue, so we have a gradation in the blues, and then just that blush pink and curry gold. I'm telling you, this is showing up everywhere in all fabrics these days. It's a hip color combination. So then we have another, we'll have a Riley Blake, Mon Cherie by Leela Tuller. Have always loved her beautiful florals and sense of color. So I love this classic, these blues, kind of a dusty blue with beautiful corals, and then an awesome gold to go with it. This would just be classic quilts, really pretty for summer. Then we have another favorite, of course, Puffin Bay by Louis and Irene. Who doesn't love puffins? Of course, I'm Icelandic, so they are natives of Iceland, at least for part of the year. So they're a part of my culture. So I love, love, love these prints by Louis and Irene. 6 prints include the puffins, and then some beautiful coordinates and in an awesome soft colorway. All right, so next one is called Windsong Meadows. This is a Wilmington print. I love this unique color story with that kind of mint green, kind of a medium blue with a navy blue, and then beautiful low volumes to mix in. So really nice. Could create some ombre effect and all kinds of fun things with this one. Then we have another Riley Blake line called With a Flourish. And so the designer for this is called Simple Simon and Company. And I love this peach and gold together with the blue. Another really fresh take on color, mixing it all together, throwing in a little bit of stripe to balance things out. Really like this one. Is that it? That's all she wrote for now, but we are currently adding more. We're getting back in the swing of things after a really, really busy summer. So just keep checking those out. It's a great way to secure your bundles, a great way to plan financially, and secure the things that you really want, and you get a little bit of a discount by placing that pre-order. All right, so let's talk about flannels. So I have a lot of talking points, a lot of tips for you. So I'm going to go through them, and then we can have a Q&A at the end. And then I'm going to show you a lot of great flannels and some of the projects that I am in the midst of working on with flannel. It just comes to this time of year, and when those beautiful flannels start coming in, I have to sew out of them. They're so beautiful to sew with. So let's start with quality. So quality of your flannel, that one really, really matters. So I don't know, can you put those talking points up on the screen? So I know it would incorporate you having to type, Mr. HP. You have to type all those talking points up on the screen. Yeah. You do have your glasses on, so that's helpful. But that would just be nice. So when I talk about quality, so flannel does not just equal flannel. Flannel can be very different, many different weaves, just like our regular cotton. So you can get low quality flannel that has a looser weave than our quilt shop quality flannels. And there is quite the difference, as you probably may have experienced with regular cottons. So just be aware of that it matters if you do want to use something that is a looser weave. There are just some steps to take, so you may want to wash it beforehand just to tighten up that weave, because if it's a looser weave, lesser quality flannel, it's probably going to shrink a bit more than your quilt shop quality flannel. And so also a thing to consider with a quality level, so flannel it usually frays quite a bit, especially there's flannels that are woven, are yarn dyed, and then there's flannels that are printed. So they do fray a little bit, so the looser the weave, the more fraying you're going to get. But all flannels fray a little bit more than regular cottons. Just be aware of that. So that brings us to the question, do we pre-wash or not? Well, this is, of course, a big, big personal preference. For me, I've talked about this many times on my shows, I usually do not pre-wash. And the same goes if I'm working with flannel, with a few exceptions. So with flannel, I want to make sure if I am making a flannel quilt and I'm going to use flannel for the quilt top and flannel for the backing, if it's all coming from the same fabric manufacturer or same line of fabric, I don't pre-wash. I sew my flannel quilt top, I put together my flannel back, I quilt it, bind it, and then it goes in the washing machine and gets all crinkled up so it shrinks. Flannel shrinks, and like I said, based on the quality, it shrinks more when it's a looser weave than it does with higher quality. But I love that. A flannel quilt should be really loose and cuddly and kind of crinkled. So if I am mixing two brands of flannel, like a looser weave with a quality flannel, then I pre-wash, especially the lower quality one, because they're going to shrink differently. So I always do that. If I am working with highly concentrated reds or highly concentrated colors with, for example, a white or a very light background, then I at least do a color check. I do a bleed check. I take a little piece of that color, put it in some warm water, and see if I see any color in the water. If I do, then I pre-wash all of that. And so if you need to pre-wash, you want to make sure you wash it on a gentle cycle and on cold. If there is any chance of bleeding, I will put a little vinegar in it, or I will put a little retain, something that retains the color, and of course throw in quite a few color catchers in my wash. Same thing with drying. If you put it in the dryer, you want to put it on a gentle cycle in the dryer as well, just because so it frays. So it frays a little bit less if it's a little bit gentler. So if you have smaller pieces and you're washing it, you might want to put it in a mesh bag or something, because otherwise you're going to have strings everywhere. All right, so sometimes the other case where I do pre-wash is if I'm going to put a flannel back on a regular cotton quilt, or if I'm going to mix flannels and cottons in a quilt. which I have done both. I do a lot of flannel backs for my quilts, especially if they're going to be gifted and being used and cuddled with. So then I always wash that flannel, because remember, flannel is going to shrink a little bit more than regular cottons. So if you ever are making anything that needs to fit out of a flannel, like clothing or like really fitted pillowcases or anything like that, that's when you want to pre-wash flannel, because you don't want it to shrink after you've really made it fit something. So those are the cases that I do pre-wash. Gentle cycle, gentle dry. Just remember that one. All right, so that brings us to starch or not. Again, completely optional and very much based on personal preference. With this one, I normally don't do a lot of starching unless I'm doing a lot of diagonal cuts, and the same goes with flannel. Usually when I'm working with flannel, I try and pick patterns that have a little bit bigger pieces, because it is, of course, thicker to work with. So I usually don't feel the need to starch flannel. I have, though, and in those cases, you want to just make sure of a couple of things. You want to starch it or use that best press on the back side of the flannel. So not the nap side, on the back side of the flannel. So you got to make sure it kind of soaks a little bit, because it is thick. And then you want to make sure also that it completely dries before you start cutting it or working with it, because if it's a little damp or wet, it's going to stretch. So you want to make sure it's completely dry before you bring it over to your iron and press it. So that brings us to pressing. Are there any points with flannel where you need to be considerate about pressing? And yes, absolutely. So you want to actually press. It's more important to press flannel than it is to iron. So whenever I am working on pieces, so pressing to one side, you want to make sure you fold your fabric out first, push that seam out, and then just press. Don't be ironing it, because it's going to pull and curve a little bit if you start handling it too much. So pressing is good, steam is good, and steam is just going to help kind of making it through that thickness of the flannel, help penetrate it and get those seams nicer and flatter. So speaking of pressing, so if you are working on a pattern where you have a lot of seams coming together, you know, flannel is double, triple, quadruple thickness of regular cotton sometimes. So in those cases, you might want to consider pressing those instances, pressing those seams open. Just because you have so many coming together, if you press it to one side, you just end up with a big lump, which can be hard to quilt through, depending on whatever quilting style you're using, or if you're doing a long arm or a home machine. All right, so that brings us to the next step, cutting the flannel. So if you're working with your stripology rulers, as you should, you want to make sure that you're cutting fewer layers when you're working with flannel than you're working with regular cottons. And that is, again, because of the thickness. And we have to cut through the ruler. So your blade needs to reach through the ruler down to the cutting mat. So I cut much less layers with flannel than regular fabric. And I always try and use my 60mm cutter, but you can, of course, use your 45. Just then think about that, maybe even fewer layers. Now, with flannel, because it frays a little bit, I always make sure to have a fresh cutting blade in my cutter, because if there's a little bit of nicks, it starts pulling, you know, if there's a thread that misses, it starts pulling really fast. So fresh blade, and then consider this. I have a special cutting mat that I use for flannel, and if I ever need to cut batting. I just use an old mat that has lots of grooves and is probably not the best for fine cottons and fine stuff. And I bring that one out for my flannel because of the nap, because of the fuzziness, when we make a cut, they are going to get stuck in the grooves. So, and sometimes it just does not heal up 100% after that. So I always use that mat. But if you have just one mat, just make sure you clean those threads out of your mat as soon as you are done cutting, because that's going to really help you heal up that mat and keep it nice. All right, so next up, sewing needle. Do you need anything different for your sewing needle than when you're piecing regular cottons? I use usually an 80-12 needle for my regular piecing, and that is sufficient. Sometimes I use a 75, but if I'm working with flannel, I want to make sure to have at least an 80 needle, because a little bit thicker, sturdier needle, just because the thickness of the flannel, especially if you're sewing through seams, it's just going to take a little more to get through those seams. So I do, you know, make sure that I have my 80-12 needle. Now a sharp is still good. You can do a universal, but I usually just use an 80-12 sharp for when I'm working with flannel. Seam allowance. This has been a topic because if you have sewn clothing or any kind of other types of items other than quilts from flannel, everybody recommends use a 1/2 inch seam allowance for all your flannel. Now that's hard if you just want to work off of a quilting pattern. And honestly, if you're working with good quilt shop quality flannels, it's totally fine to use your regular scant 1/4 inch seam. Just know that you might have to do an extra scant because of the thickness of the flannel. So always test it. You can watch some of my previous videos about your piecing accuracy and do the same type of testing your seam allowance with the flannel. You just have to make sure that you do your seam, you press, and then you measure, because the pressing makes all the difference to see if your piece is coming out the right size. But another thing with the seam allowance, consider this. Try and pick patterns. Doesn't necessarily matter a whole lot. So some of the patterns I've shown you here on the set, like Supersized Nina or Steamy Windows or Phoenix, those are great because they're bigger pieces, and honestly the seam allowance, if you're a little off, doesn't really make a difference. Either that or choose a pattern where you finish the blocks and then you square it up in the end. And so that makes all the difference. So then your blocks are all going to be turned out the same because you square it up. And as you know, if you've done any of my patterns, a lot of my patterns allow for that. So stay away from patterns that have multiple points coming together because of the thickness of the flannel. That's just going to give you an extra headache. So I would stay away from those. But otherwise, there are not really any patterns that are just for flannel and just for cotton. You can kind of play with it. Just think about those pieces being a little bit bigger when using flannel. All right, so stitch length. On your sewing machine, I'm sure you are used to working with a certain stitch length when you're piecing regular cottons. So I recommend increasing your stitch length just a tad bit when using flannels. You know, they are thick, so your seams are going to kind of dig into that flannel. So if you ever have to rip something out, it's harder when that stitch length is really tight. And honestly, the machine working through that flannel, it helps when you increase the stitch length. So normally I just up it to about 3, sometimes 3.5, and that depends on your machine. So just test it out. If you feel like your machine is struggling, try and increase that stitch length, and hopefully that will help it through. So another thing that kind of ties into that is preventing the fabric from sliding. You know, you lay 2 layers of fabric together and you're going to sew them together. And we will have that because of the thickness of the flannel. The top layer might be pushing and sliding. So when you get to the end of your seam, that top fabric is longer than your bottom fabric. And that is just because the presser foot is pushing that fabric along on the top. So few things that you can help with that. Stitch length could be one. And then if you can release the pressure of your presser foot, lift it a little bit. Some machines allow you to do that. That might help. If you have a dual feed system on your machine, some machines have it built in. That's great. Pinning, adding some extra pins when you're working with flannel might also help, just to kind of even things through. But if it's still not working out, you might want to try piecing it with a walking foot. Now, I've never resorted to that. I've always tried to figure it out so I can just use my regular foot, and it's worked for me so far. So with all those little tips. All right, so finishing it off, binding. When you're binding a flannel quilt, you want to bind it with flannel, you want to make sure that you cut your binding wider than you do with regular cottons. Normally when I'm piecing quilts and cutting binding for my cotton quilts, I do a 2 1/4 inch wide binding to do a double fold binding. But with flannel, I'd go at least 2 1/2 inches, sometimes 2 3/4. It just depends. If I'm working with really thick flannel, I might go up to that. And there's even ways if you want a little bit of wide binding, I've done that too. I've cut 3-inch binding strips, and then when I sew it on, when I trim my quilt, I trim it a little bit away from the raw edge of the quilt top, and then sew my binding on so I have a bigger fold over. But that's another tutorial for a later time. But make sure you cut it a little bit wider than you do normally. Quilting. Now, flannel can be quilted on a domestic machine, on a long arm, anything you want. I just recommend, because flannel is so nice and cuddly, I always try and choose a quilting pattern that it's a little bit more open, not so tightly quilted than otherwise, because we don't want the flannel to lose that softness and cuddliness. If we quilt it too heavy, it's going to get stiff. That thread is going to get heavy. And you know, flannel quilts can get a little bit heavy to start with, so we don't want to increase that. We want it to have that cuddliness and softness. So picking quilting patterns that are a little bit more open, not so tight, is perfect for flannel. We need that soft nature of the flannel to shine through. So that is my list of tips for working with flannel. And so if you have any questions, put them up in the comments. Oh, how do you clean the mat? We have a cleaning sponge that is phenomenal in the store. I don't know if I have one here. I probably don't. It's just this little plastic sponge that it works great. So before you clean the mat, you got to get all those little threads out. So use that to get all the threads out. And then you can take it to your bathtub and just use warm water and just softly with a cloth, make sure you clean all that dust and try and get even all the dust out of the grooves. So that's the best way. But after I use that little sponge across my cutting mat in between cuts as I'm working, as I'm cutting through all my flannel, just to clean it out in between, and then I give it an extra afterwards. Would a walking foot help with flannel? Yeah, that's one of the things I mentioned when I was talking about if your sliding is happening too much, then I would resort to that. All right, see any other questions? I'm sending a cotton top with flannel back into a long armor for quilting. Should I give her a heads up that my back is flannel? I mean, I think that's always common courtesy, but most experienced long armors have no problem with that. I would just suggest, if you haven't done so yet, I would pre-wash or at least pre-soak that flannel before, but I'm sure you have already. Do you still use Quilter's Dream for batting? I use mostly Bozo poly batting, and that is one thing. You know, quilts, flannel quilts, they're flannel both sides, are going to get heavy, so I like to use the poly batting so they're lighter and kind of softer and fluffier. Oh, here we have our little sponge. Andrea went and ran. It's called Aunt Pam's Quilt Sponge. So this is my favorite little tool to clean the mats. It is kind of this soft, plasticky, but it's spongy, so it's like a sponge, but it just works really great, and it doesn't harm your mat, doesn't scratch it or anything, and it just gets those little threads out so fast and easy. So love this little thing. All right, different weights of basting. I didn't talk about basting because normally I put my quilts on the long arm, but I think there doesn't need to be any different weights of basting. If you're talking about spacing for quilting, oh, different weights of batting. Good. So I've heard this before. I normally don't use cotton batting for my quilts, but I've heard that if you, especially if you're quilting flannel quilt yourself, that using 100% cotton, it may shift and slide a little bit with the flannel. So believe me, I have not experienced that before, but also because I don't use it too much. But my thing would be, I want my flannel quilt to be cuddly and cozy and soft and maneuverable, kind of fluffy. So I like the light polys and really have the flannel be. Also, wool batting is great. Wool is great for flannel quilts. I have a couple flannel quilts that have wool batting, and those are the best for the bonfires. What I would recommend for batting, I just talked about that. I use Bosal, B-O-S-A-L, which it's called Winter. It's their poly batting, is what I love for my quilts, for most of my quilts. Quilter's Dream is very similar. Poly, so that's what I use, but it's such a personal preference with batting, so it can be up to you. Just talked about the wool batting. I love wool batting as well. I've not tried bamboo. Bamboo I've heard good things about as well, but I have not tried it myself. All right. Well, that was a lot, and so keep the questions coming. I might go revisit some of the questions if you have more, but I think it's time to show you some of those beautiful flannels that are new in the store and I have been working with these past few days. So we're going to start with a beautiful line from Moda called Fall Melody Flannel. So this is Holly Taylor, and I was just sewing out of these last night. They are so yummy. So let's start with, this is a 12-piece flannel. So yes, fall leaves, beautiful, beautiful rich colors, and fall-inspired prints. So we're starting with the kind of the black colorway, which is really just a deep charcoal because we don't have a pure black. So I love this one, the black background with the foliage on top, just a fine line. Then we have this really cute small print, and the colors and the prints are just this rusty red and gold. Going into the red colorway, we have the leaves on the red, kind of a very nice burgundy red background that has a lot of orange undertone. Small print here with a diagonal grid on it. Into a little bit more of the orange hue. Love this print, kind of a basket weave. The small print in the reddish orange. And then going into our golds, we have the small gridded leaves and the basket weave. And then finish it off with the beautiful greens. So we have the fall leaves on the green. And then a smaller leaf print, a little bit more spaced out. And then finally the basket weave. So this is Fall Melody Flannels. On top of having the bundle, we have some 1 yards and 3 yards from the line. So they have beautiful kind of tone-on-tone solid. So it's kind of not fully solid. I would say kind of a shadowy texture. So we have the olive, and then we have the crimson, red, and then we have the black. So these are kind of almost solids, and then we have the cream, which I love the cream in the Fall Melody. So we have the cream in both 1 yards and 3 yards. So it's a really nice warm cream color that just makes a really yummy quilt. So I did 2 things with this bundle just last night and was playing with it. So I cut it into some 10-inch squares and made some hope blocks from the 10-inch square using the cream for my accent. So here are some of my these are my B blocks, here are some of my A blocks, and I really love how this is turning out. I just threw some of these blocks up on the design wall here before the show, so you want to let's show them how it kind of is coming together. I haven't decided on a layout, but I think this is going to be really yummy when this comes together in these soft colors. But along with cutting, when I'm cutting up a bundle, I cut 10-inch squares. I always have to finish cutting the rest of the bundle. So what I did, instead of, I knew I couldn't have the exact size strips used for the steamy window supersized. So I was able to cut 2 4-inch strips. So I did kind of the same block from the Steamy Supersized. And so this is what I'm doing with the rest of the bundle. So I'll be able to make 2 quilts. I don't know how big this is going to get, but I cut 2 strips from each fabric, which means that means 1 block. So I'll be able to get 12 blocks. So that's awesome. So maybe I'll work with those and maybe mix in some other flannel lines to make a scrappy, almost a steamy windows. So this is Fall Melody Flannels by Holly Taylor. So the other new flannel line that we have in the house is just as gorgeous. So this one is called Let It Snow, and it is let's see where it's, I think this is, yeah, it's Henry Glass. So it's Janet Nesbitt, and I love her artwork. So this one I decided to do kind of a light and dark combination because she has such great light fabrics. So love this print with a little bit of Let It Snow and some trees and snowmen and stuff like that. We have another, it's like a grid with little carrots, so snowman noses. I love this print. This is like a knitted like stocking with dots, polka dots. And then we have another polka dot one in this taupe color with white snowflakes and then tiny little snowmen. Another one, I just love these kind of dirty, creamy taupes with snowflake prints, both light and dark ones, so lots of texture in this one. And then the last one here has these dark charcoal stars and a little bit of a grid texture. Let me move this in. So these are the lights in the bundle, and then my darks are the charcoal, so the same main print here, Let It Snow. And this is more, it has a lot of blue in it, so like a bluish charcoal color. I just love this color. And then we have the snowflake, little polka dot snowflakes with the snowmen, and then a lighter gray here with the big snowflakes. And then the other color is this beautiful deep red. So Let It Snow. And then we have the grid that's kind of like a plaid with the tiny little carrot noses. And then the snowflake one. So both, this one is just beautiful soft flannel, just like the fall melody ones. We also have 3 of the fabrics. So we have the main print and the charcoal, both available in 1 yards and in a 3-yard pack as well. But then we have 2 more prints that are not in the line, and that is that knitted in the charcoal color with the polka dots, and also in a green. So I loved including the green because if you wanted to do a quilt pattern that needed an accent color that's not in the bundle, this would be great, perfect for a little pop, perfect for like a binding or an inner border or something to really bring in something else. So then there is a panel that goes with this line. It's not included in the bundle, sold separately. That is really, really cute. So it is a 24-inch panel, but it's 1 large piece. So it says, "Baby, it's cold outside." And I'm going to show you this on a bigger scale. So it says, "Let it snow" here on the bottom. And then here it says, "Snowflakes that stay on my nose and eyelashes." Really, really cute. So this one is sold separately. And you know, sometimes, I hope I'm not the only crazy one, but I actually took this panel and this 3-yard home last night, and I made myself a backing for a future quilt. Yes, I have not made the quilt or planned it yet, but I will be making a quilt out of this bundle. I absolutely love it. And so I made the backing. So check this out. The backing is using just the 1 panel, and the 3-yard, and this is what it looks like. Isn't this adorable? So I'm going to give you instructions how to do this a little bit later in the show and show you where you can find the instructions to do it using just a 24-inch panel and a 3-yard cut of fabric. It's really awesome. You end up with a lap size back that is at least 65 by 80 to 84. So perfect for most lap size quilts. So I wanted to show you some other flannels that we have already in the store, fairly fresh and new. If you haven't seen them yet, we have shown these past few weeks. So Winter Comfort Flannel is a beautiful blacks, grays, and then a little bit of whites and red. And so this one comes with a panel that could be used exactly like that other one I used for the backing. So it has really cute polar bears in the middle, let it snow, and then some penguins on the bottom. Of course, you could cut these out, and actually we're working on a JoJo quilt out of this, and then we're going to utilize the panels kind of to mix in with the blocks, which I think will be very, very cute. Can't wait to see that. So this is Winter Comfort. Then we had come in not too long ago the Autumn Gatherings flannels, and these are the plats from Lisa Bonjean Primitive Gathering. So this one we have grays, like darker grays and lighter grays, so lights and darks, so perfect to make like a Phoenix or a supersized Nina or steamy windows, just like I showed you the quilts before. It would get a very similar look. And then we got the same, from the same line, Autumn Gatherings flannel in the colorful. So this is the neutral bundle, and then this is the colorful. I love these purples, oranges, greens, and golds. And I actually started something out of this last night as well. So I am making the Sarah quilt. The Sarah is a cut loose press quilt, perfect for flannel, big pieces, squared up in the end. And look how rich and gorgeous this is going to be. This quilt is going to be. I just love it. So we can show you kind of how it's going to. I just made 4 blocks, but there will be more. So I'm considering saving the rest of these leftovers from this quilt to incorporate into my leftovers from the Fall Melody, because look, it blends perfectly, so I can make a big quilt out of this, hopefully. So that's been my fun. Yes, I got on a roll because I have probably not sewn for almost 2 months with all of the moving and the schedule craziness. So I was in my element over the weekend and yesterday. So this is what I'm working on, but let me show you this backing and where you can find the instructions. So what you want to do, here's my backing. I absolutely love it. It's ready. So just got to figure out what I'm going to make, what quilt I'm going to make with Let It Snow flannels. I'm thinking, because it's lights and darks, it would be cool to do either a Kira or something that has a real great contrast, Kira or Venus, or yeah, something fun. And then here's what you want to do. On our website, under bonus charts and templates, there you will find this little instruction sheet, how to make this backing. That is about 65 by 82, the backing, so which means that you can use that for a little bit smaller quilt than that if you're sending it to a long armor, which most lap quilts fall under that. And so go to bonus charts and templates, click on the link, and then it will pull up the PDF, and you can print it out right there. And so simple as cutting 2 strips for the sides of the panel, and then you cut the rest of it and fold, and what the result is that the whole backing fabric, the 3-yard, it ends up being all on the same grain lines in the quilt back. So no problems with any kind of different stretching because of that. So check that out, everybody. Any more questions? I feel like I've been talking non-stop. I have to take a little sip of water. I think it's time for your part of the deal. I think everybody's been really great about commenting and asking questions, so there must be lots of options for that winner of the gift card.
There is an options.
Yes.
And I think we have one. Drum roll, please.
Who is it? Sandy Dyrek. Congratulations, Sandy. You are a live winner for Tipsy Tuesday, September 20th. All you got to do is send us an email to help@gequiltdesigns.com to claim your gift card. But hold on, there is another chance to win. We have, I wanted to mention before we finish up with flannel, because if you're looking for more flannel, we did have some bundles in the tent sale that are gone. We do have some 1 yards in the tent sale that are a great deal. We have one flannel panel in the tent sale still available with really fun images from the Winter Elegance line. And along with the Autumn Gatherings flannel, the plaids, we have a lot of the plaids available in 1 yards and 3 yards for backs, bigger pieces. So check all that out. And we have more flannel coming. We are going to be adding some basic flannels to keep in our 1 yards and stock them year round, because I have heard so many stories that it's really hard to find great flannel consistently. So check that out. All right, so my question, as a giveaway question for you, all you got to do is answer this question in the comments. You're automatically entered for a gift card, and the winner will be drawn and announced a week from today on our show. And my question is simple. Have you ever made a flannel quilt? So tell us in the comments, and you're automatically entered. And our next Tipsy Tuesday show is September 27th. It's going to be a special show. 4 p.m. is going to be our Christmas show. Yes, do you remember our Halloween show where we showed you a whole lot of Halloween inspiration, quilts, runners, fun stuff to do with our bundles? We're going to do the same thing on September 27th, showing you all kinds of inspiration and all the holiday Christmas bundles that are available in our store. So don't miss that one. It's always a great one. But we will, of course, be live this coming Friday, September 23rd, and toasting 1 more year added to Mr. HP's roster. Celebrate his birthday. So he gets to pick the cocktail ingredients. Can you tell him the ingredients?
I'm not going to tell.
I have a feeling he wants something with gin, right? That's his favorite these days.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. All right, so I hope we see you for either of our shows this Friday, 23rd at 12 p.m. Central Time, or next week, Tipsy Tuesday Christmas show, September 27th at 4 p.m. Central. But thank you all so much for watching today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.